The whole story of Granny finally revealed. Today's story revolves around something that has haunted the minds of many horror video game enthusiasts. Developers' video game Granny was supposed to be the spiritual successor to the somewhat popular video game series Slendrina. While the game was obviously inspired by the cult classic video game Slenderman, Slendrina took its own form as developers started integrating their stories and expanding the Slendrina universe with each and every video game release. When Granny first came out, much of the story was cryptic and the backstories were hard to track. However, we believe that we have the answer. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to our channel. Today we will be covering the whole true backstory of Granny, as we will be diving deep into each tragic nook and cranny of her life story. As always, if you wish to support our channel, please drop a like and subscribe. If you don't want to miss a single video release, make sure to press the bell notification icon and turn on YouTube notifications on mobile. Without further ado, let's dive into today's story. Granny was born in Emboscada in Paraguay. Her parents were jobless as the entire family lived in a desolate state. Finding no resolution, Granny's father turned to drug trafficking in order to make a living for his family. However, as it always does, the criminal world always leads one towards disaster. When Granny was just 10 years old, her father returned home with a significant amount of money. He said that he struck gold with one of his jobs, and now he can provide a decent life to everybody. The entire family moved into Romania as they purchased a house on the plains. However, things weren't all sunshine and rainbows, as there were some odd things that came along with their new living condition. For one, they lived isolated from the rest of the world, and Granny was also not allowed to go to school in order to obtain some much-needed education. Even though this brought in a lot of questions in her mind, Granny's father never told her the truth. The truth was that he had stolen money from Bolivian traffickers during one of his jobs. The reason why the father wanted to live so isolated was so that the family could never be found by the traffickers, because he knew in his heart that they were still out there looking for him and his family. As a safety precaution, the father even made fake documents for every family member. They never traveled by car either. Her loving mother did everything she could as she managed to teach Granny the English language at home. However, Granny's life took a tragic turn when their house was invaded by armed masked men while the family were having a meal. Granny was a mere 15-year-old child at the time, and her heart was beating fast out of sheer fear. All the men were armed with fully loaded AK-47 rifles. The largest man of the bunch, who was assumedly the boss, approached their father. He questioned the father as to where the money was. The father was startled, but he responded to the man and said that he shall bring it to him from the drawer. Her father slowly got out of his chair as he walked towards the drawer. He secretly grasped the baseball bat that was inside the drawer as he gritted his teeth. With inexplicable courage, he charged the armed man who questioned him and hit him hard on the head with the bat, while he successfully knocked the assumed leader of the gang onto the ground. What he failed to account for were the other gunmen who were on standby. The other terrorists immediately started shooting the father and mother. Without wasting time, Granny crawled through the hole in the wall, covered behind a sofa as she ran away in terror while crying into the forest. The terrorists wasted no time as they decided to follow her, as she ran deeper and deeper into the woods. She had absolutely no idea where she was going, and she didn't dare stop until 20 minutes later, when she absolutely had to stop and rest. They were no longer following her, but the reality finally dawned on her. She was in the middle of Romania with no clue on what to do next. After exploring for a bit, she encountered a dark mansion that seemed abandoned. She entered through the front door and found nobody. The corridor was dark and had paintings hung on either side of the walls. As she went deeper into the house, she encountered a man and a woman dining. The man introduced himself as Charlie, while the woman introduced herself as Eva. Charlie told Granny that he was an Italian painter, as he warmly welcomed Granny. He invited her to join them to eat carbonara pasta, while she told them her tale, and so she did. She told her tale to Charlie and Eva down to the very last detail. Charlie and Eva were taken aback by the story, as the shock caused them to feel concern for Granny. They claimed that they were going to report everything to the police the next morning. However, Charlie and Eva did not know that a shadow from the past was planning to haunt them that very same night. A woman named Krasow was hiding inside the mansion, waiting for Charlie and Eva to fall asleep in order to kill them. Krasow was Charlie's previous wife, and she wanted vengeance. Later that night, as Charlie and Eva slept, Krasow started to make weird noises through the walls of the house. Granny was the first to hear the noises as she woke up and opened her bedroom door, only to be greeted with the terrifying sight of Krasow's pale, floating head. Granny was paralyzed with fear as Krasow turned around to face her. Krasow opened her mouth and in a terrifying tone muttered one word at Granny. "Run." Granny ran away from the mansion, the fear creeping up to her with each step. Krasow had spared Granny because she only wished revenge upon Charlie and Eva. Krasow ends up killing Charlie, who later ends up being the ghost of the mansion. As Granny ran into the forest, she came across a road where she rested and fell asleep. The next morning, she was found on the road by the police, and she was questioned. Granny confessed everything that she had seen. However, she kept the details on what had happened in the mansion to herself. The police decided to entrust Granny into an orphanage where she grew up until she turned 18. As soon as she left the orphanage, she started working at a bar in order to survive. After some time passed, she returned to her old house in the woods. The house was in tatters after all those years had passed, but it was still standing. She found the bat that her father used to attack the terrorist leader, and she took it with her. The one skill Granny excelled at was talking to people, as she managed to charismatically obtain a job working as a cook in a luxury restaurant. She started earning a lot of money working there. However, she also encountered a very kind waiter that she befriended. This was Grandpa. After a few months of courting, they both got engaged and decided to start their new wedded life at the same house where Granny's parents met their tragic fate. They spent a lot of time, money, and effort rebuilding the house. She also found her childhood drawings, and she hung them on the wall. As they finally settled into the house, Grandpa started working as a carpenter. Both Granny and Grandpa spent their wedded years in the same house. Later, they had a daughter named Angeline, who in the near future ended up being none other than Slendrina's mother. One day, as Grandpa was exploring the other properties nearby the house, he encountered the mansion. He broke through the locked door of the abandoned mansion with a crowbar. As he explored the inside of the mansion, he came across bags of coin. As he began to pick them up, Krasow flew into the room from the darkness and bit him on the chest. Granny had never told anyone about her encounter with the mansion. As Grandpa attempted to run back home, he fell on the path and died. Granny found his dead body sometime after, as she buried him behind her house. This counts for the third time that she had lost a loved one, with the first two being her mother and father. However, she was strong and she refused to cry, as she truly believed that her life could not be any better. After some time passed, a little boy named Simon arrived at her house. Simon ended up being the cult classic horror icon we all know and love, Slenderman. Simon had also lost his parents. Granny welcomed him to her house and took care of him. As Angeline and Simon grew up together, they fell in love with each other at the ripe age of 17. However, things took a turn as Angeline once encountered a black dog in the forest that cursed her with a bite on her leg. This dog was none other than Good Boy from the horror game Eyes. After some time passed, they moved and had a daughter named Slendrina. Granny fell in love with Slendrina and she gave her a teddy bear. When Slendrina turned 14, the curse took to life. Simon changed into Slenderman as Slendrina and her mother turned into ghosts, and the two of them began to haunt abandoned houses. This marks yet another occasion when Granny had lost the ones she loved. Granny felt the longing Slendrina's ghost had for the teddy bear she was gifted when she was alive, so she took the time to take the teddy bear into Slendrina's school, and she placed the teddy bear in a classroom. After all the loss she had faced, Granny wanted to do everything in her power to bring Grandpa back to life. This was when she came across Nosferatu, Slendrina's future husband. Granny worked with him and managed to bring Grandpa back to life. However, he acted strange and looked like a zombie. After a while, Granny decided to move to an old nursing home in Bulgaria with Grandpa. As some time passed, Granny turned into a zombie. Devoid of any meaning in her life, Granny decided to dedicate her life to protect Slendrina's teddy bear and diary. To do this, Granny turned her entire house into an elaborate trap. The house was filled with puzzles and riddles to torture and kill any unlucky soul who finds the house. She used her father's bat to kill and torture people, and she is absolutely intent on not letting anyone find out Slendrina's secret. However, as she realized that the diary was not protected well inside the house, she took the diary to Grandpa's house in Bulgaria in order to protect it better. Granny's true end goal? To bring her entire dead family back to life. And guess what? She is succeeding one person at a time. Did you like this story? We have finally reached the conclusion of Granny's story, a story that spanned from not just the Slendrina games, but also other classic horror games like Eyes and Slenderman. For more intriguing atmospheric stories like this, be sure to like this channel and subscribe so you can support us to make more content. If you don't want to miss a single upload, make sure to turn on bell notifications for the channel and turn on YouTube notifications on your mobile phone. See you next time.